see the chats on this? Or you can see it on your end. Okay, my everybody. We having some Mercury in retrograde type of moments over here. Had to switch device. I had to switch to the phone. Something's going on with my iPad, so we're here. So nobody's on, right? It says 0 on my end. How many is on your side? We on?
Yeah, we got 6 people on.
Okay, my everybody. We'll be up to 8 now. Okay, I think I see the chats now. Uncle my water Uncle my Jason Holmes, I remember him. Nebraska, right? Let's get right to the shout out. So let's get to the manners. So who are you and where you shouting out from? Peace to the righteous and respectable chat. So we got Wadet from where you from, Wadet? We got Shantae, Uncle Maat, E.N. Doba from Boston. Okay. That's a new one, Boston. Oklahoma, all right, yeah. Edmond, Oklahoma. So it looks like we're going to have a small, intimate group today. So the rain slowed people up. Lincoln, Nebraska. That's right. By way of East St. Louis. All right. For some reason, I think people think we start at like 1:15.
Oh yeah.
I think we were starting at 1:15 at one point, maybe. Yeah, maybe in COVID. The temple people not even on yet. Nasir from Neptune, New Jersey. Okay.
When I see it, it's my people.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. Kerheb says he know you, Nasir. I don't know if I know you, but Kerheb know. Neptune, New Jersey.
Yeah, okay. We went to college together, Virginia State.
Okay. You from Virginia State, Nasir? That's where the Kerheb say he might know you from. Went to college together. Wired said she had a hard time finding and getting alive for some reason. You know anything about that? Christos Logos, interesting name, the word of Christ. The word of the anointed one. Greetings, Worcestershire. Is that Maine? M-A is Maine. Bob Mary, Bob Mary, you from Long Island, correct? Yeah, he confirmed.
Okay, yeah. She said she want to see the video.
It appears to be some discrepancy with finding the video, so just to be fair, I'd rather wait a few minutes to make sure all our people get in, so everybody get the full message. I don't know what that's about. He said you need to come visit the temple. This is the temple for right now, and that's it. So, we'll keep you informed when we have some in live events. It's gonna come up soon in the spring and the summer, definitely. What time we have?
Right now it's 1:18.
All right, we gotta start. All right, so let's get into the opening. Amatu in panetir, sawek tu amintin panetir, au dwalma keti pa heru. The translation is thus: give homage to the Creator daily. Keep giving homage to the Creator daily, and may tomorrow be as today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything, yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibilities in the divine scheme of things. May we be ma'akiru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality. And in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is, and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at. That's right. So, Iyiti, and welcome to the Communion Experience. This is your host, the Nasut Bidi, Rasanku Kepra, Chief and Head Priest of the Temple of Anu. So we're going to get right into it and get things in order. So I want to start off by giving somewhat of a disclaimer as such, because we're living in sensitive times and people receive messages and sometimes they don't receive messages. Sometimes people take offense at messages. I come from the era of listening to people like Dr. Sebi, Dr. Africa, Dr. Ben, and sometimes they was crass and they had some, wild ways that they taught, but I never got offended. I never let that take away from how I saw them and the knowledge that they were trying to impart upon us as a people. So with that being said, I say I take full responsibility for everything that comes out my mouth and every lesson that I teach. I'm charged to give the immutable and irrefutable messages of the ancients. So at times, my provocative and evocative analogies and metaphors can be challenging, but we have to accept that with the English language, even though we have analogies and metaphors, sometimes they fall short in transmitting the nature of the messages. So, with that said, I say I trust in the process, and I trust in you, and I trust in your spiritual maturity that you are able to intuit the inner meaning and the intent. Because after all, one day you all will be called to teach some of these very same lessons to people, and sometimes you hit and sometimes you miss. There's a such thing as saying the right thing, but sometimes it can be said at the wrong time. And sometimes people get it later. They might get it a week later. They might get it a year later. And they be like, oh, I thought you was crazy when you said it, but now I get it. So there's one caveat that we all are going to come to understand is this, that sometimes it doesn't matter how well you communicate. Sometimes people are just not in a place of space to receive what it is that you're laying down for them. So if you could accept and respect that, just hit a 1 in the chat so I know we can move on. At least 5 people. So y'all know I'm not just reckless on purpose. Got 3, 4, 5, okay, 6. Good. So I trust that everyone is in a better place or space since the last communion. And why not? After all, if we are true Kemites, our lives shouldn't be falling apart in between one communion from the next. So it's all about progression, keperu. So with that being said, as we come into this new year, I want to just tell you that each communion, we're going to do each communion different. Each communion is going to build off the lessons from the last communion, because we're a Kemetic movement. We're a Kemetic movement. I have an acronym for that, and I say KEM, K-E-M, which means keep the energy moving. With that being said, in order to be a movement or to have a movement, you need to have a path. You need to have a trajectory. You need to have a primary cause. So just take a few minutes as I speak and just ask yourself the question, what is the primary cause of why you do what it is that you do? What is the primary cause of why you even want to think you want to be bothered with somebody like me or somebody that's dealing with the Kemetic legacy? What is the primary cause? And we're going to pause that for a second as I take a few moments to celebrate the people from last week. Last week I gave a call to order because I spoke about that we have approximately 200 people that follow us consistently through YouTube. And I always said, I like, who are these people? They don't come to the communion, they don't come to the functions, but some of those people have been following us for years. And they consider themselves, themselves part of the tribe. We're going to call y'all the Vibe Tribe. Just as a small name, we call it a Renshiri. A Renshiri is a small name. It's a nickname. So y'all going to be the Vibe Tribe. So the Vibe Tribe, they feel like they align with us. And I spoke about reciprocity. And I asked them to give donations ranging from $1 to whatever, and they did. They came through strong that day, as well as throughout the course of the week is actually several hundreds of dollars. And I want to take a few moments to celebrate you all for that. That's important. Here we're going to celebrate the small successes to activate ourselves and our mind to be prepared for the greater successes. So we say, keep that same energy, because even in the prayer we say, may today be as tomorrow. Keep the same energy, because us as Temple of Anu, as well as Shrine of Ma'at, the Shrine of Jehudi, Haru, Nepu, there's been many shrines that's been around for the greater part of 30 years. And the initiates been holding us down. So these initiates coming from these temples have sparked hundreds and thousands and maybe even hundreds of thousands of independent Kemetic practitioners that's keyed in with these Kemetic temples and these Kemetic societies. So all I'm saying in this conversation about reciprocity is It's not all on the initiates to fund the building of the nation. Everyone has to play their part. So you just heard me say we're going to start taking it from one communion to the next. We're going to build on concepts. That concept is called succession. The root to the word succession is success. So now, if everyone plays their part properly, we're almost guaranteed success. Now, in the last communion, I also gave some metaphors. I spoke about pain, and sometimes certain teachings cause pain. Certain metaphors cause people some emotional pain. And I gave the metaphor. They said pain is the sign of weakness leaving the body. Pain is the sign of the brain that something's going wrong in the body, and the brain is bringing some attention to this area, that you need to pay attention to this thing where the pain is at. We talked about triggers. Trigger is a way of seeing where you are not free yet. So I also said that when you hire a therapist, I gave the metaphor of a therapist and healing and pain therapy and things like that. I said when you hire a therapist, that person represents a symbol of the healer within you, to represent or to hold space for when you may be inclined to doubt your own healing process, when you may be inclined to give up. This person is to not to let you give up. So they have the external version of the tools that you have inside. So they work you through the pain. So the pain is actually part of a healer. Like, there's definitely different levels of pain. It's not supposed to be brutal, but sometimes life could be brutal. So to go off of that metaphor, so you have me sitting here as Nasut, I represent your inner king and your inner queen, to hold it down for the legacy while you may be getting distracted between one communion to the next. The temple of Anu, our family, represents a spiritual family that you all may be supposed to be a part of, while at the same time you may get distracted from one communion to the next. So all I'm saying is we're representing a physical version of some of your internal processes and some of your internal ideas as well as ideals. So what I'm saying is, at one point, the internal has to meet the external. So when the internal meets the external, that's when something powerful happens. So what I'm doing in these talks is I'm trying to prime you. I'm trying to prime you for when we get together, you're not looking for something to happen. Everybody's like, oh, what's supposed to happen? I'm here. What's supposed to happen? You're no longer looking for something to happen. You are the happening. And that is Keper. That is Keperu. In ancient society, every member of a city or town was directly locked in to the Perdonk, the university, or the Hetnetir. And even in African and indigenous societies, the shrine was the center of all spiritual activity of a community. So it actually housed or kept or condensed the collective spirit of a community. Some traditions call it the Agungun. We could say the Ka'u. So I'm bringing all this up to say that one of my fears, or should I say my concerns, is we're in this year of the 9. And 9 represents completion. 9 represents radical change. 9 represents death. 9 represents transition. So in the day and time that we're living in now, the culture is moving so fast, it's almost dizzying. It's like things are moving weekly. Before it took like 6 months, but things are moving weekly at this point. So my concern is, if 9 represents closure, if we don't bust a move or do something significant with this legacy this year, we could watch next year everything that we've been working 50 years on could become somehow unrelevant or unviable. You look at what happens in the conscious community with the people with the knowledge. Our people are focused and almost obsessed on the past and just trying to understand things, and that's good. There's no condemnation in that. That needs to be done, to study where you came from, where they say, so to know where you're going. But a lot of times we have more answers about the past instead of focusing on, okay, how are we proceeding into the future? Because the dominant society doesn't give a damn about the past. They only care about the future. They don't care about history, none of that stuff. So all they care about is technology. They care about the future. They care about themselves, and they care about convenience. So that's the conundrum. So here we are in ATR traditions, honoring the past and traditions and stuff, and the way the world is going. They're not They don't care about traditions and things like that. So in this dialogue and nowadays time in the conscious community, everything is about individualism, hyper individualism. So we're in the age of the podcast. In the podcast, people are having these. Actually, we're in the age where the people that used to be the listeners are now the teachers, just the same as it is with music. So now the fans are now the artists. So now the professionals don't really have people to perform for because everybody's claiming to be an artist in their own right. So same what's going on in the conscious community and the spiritual community. Everyone's claiming to have this high level of spirituality. So it's like there's no one to present to. There, it makes it almost hard or impossible to do a community because everybody thinks they're so all of this in themselves. And it's almost like it's a disdain for anybody who's actually trying to build families or trying to build communities. If you witness in the past 10 years, it's almost a disdain or hate for people like us to be Kemetic. There's a disdain for the Hebrew Israelites. There's a disdain for the Moorish brothers and sisters. Many of our elders who are now ancestors taught us that we were not a monolithic people. Dr. Ben had a book called We, the Black Hebrews, and he taught us that the Hebrews, the original Hebrews were African. Dr. Van Sertimer had a book called They Came Before Columbus. And I think he had another book about the Moors also. So they're telling us about our ancient origins in these traditions. So here we are in modern days and times. We're still claiming the Moorish, we're still claiming the Israelites, and we're still claiming the Kemetic tradition. We're supposed to be celebrated for doing this thing because for the past 70 years, everybody kept saying we lost our religion, our culture, and our God. And here you have all these people just reclaiming it all, and there's no one celebrating that right now. And what's interesting in the aforementioned cultures, they weren't perfect. And I think that's what happens when people do their research. They find out that the cultures weren't perfect and they become disillusioned and turned off. Oh, they had their hand in slavery. Each one of these traditions had their hand in slavery, and we're paying dearly for that these days. We've actually suffered from it and actually recovering from it as we currently stand right now. But there was something different about this European slave trade, which really started with the Arabs. Then it went to the Portuguese. Then it went to the European. This whole thing of wiping people's identity and the shaming, and that's a whole nother, that's nasty work, what they say today, that's nasty work. And I know some people could be like, well, hold up, Nasut, how did we have to pay for our discretions and violations about slavery and human interaction, and how are the white people not paying for theirs? And I'll say they are paying for theirs. They're paying for theirs currently. That's why you have the current presidential administration trying to reinforce white male dominance, because they've currently lost their identity. The whole DEI thing like that's really wasn't about black people. That was for the LGBTQ and trans thing. Black folks, for the most part, already had bent the knee to so-called white dominant society, but these other people were starting to get them worried about their identity and not wanting to be called men and not wanting to be called women. And they want to, have this conversation about the critical race theory and getting that out of school. So they're trying to reinforce their identity because they're losing it. Because the last time I checked, their reproduction rate is net zero compared to all other melanated ethnicities. So we could complain about how we had to suffer, which we are now recovering, or we could look at them actually going out of existence as a race. So as the next decades come along, they're actually going out of existence. So should we be complaining, or should we let Netter work? I would say that I love myself too much to bring down my frequency wishing ill for someone else. I'm going to let Netter work, and we're going to commit to doing and being who it is that we're supposed to be. Which brings us to part of the lesson, which is myrrh. Love of self, murder Joseph, or murder Jessess, the love of oneself. Now in the sesh, the glyph for myrrh is a hoe or a plow, and it indicates to something that needs to be cultivated, something that needs to be reproduced, something that needs to be expanded upon. Now, when it comes to us as melanated folks, when we talk about love, it's often a lot of times in my experience and what I hear is oftentimes dealing with physical things. We talk about the love of the culture. We talk about the love of the people in the external way. We talk about the love of our hair. We talk about the love of our skin, the love of our features, and rightfully so, in contrast to other ethnicities and stuff, because we were shamed for these things. But there's always a starting point for all of that. So yeah, we have to love those things about ourselves. But the truth of the matter is, within you, you have a divinity that's working upon you. It's almost like there's a divinity pushing your genetic codes. Your genetic codes is like a switchboard, and the divinity within is turning on certain genetic codes, which are your faculties. And those faculties are responsible for your hair, your skin, your melanated skin, as well as your features. So you're not your features, you're not your skin, you're not your hair. Those things are symptoms of the unique creator that exists within realms within inside yourself. With that being said, I want to talk about the natural nature of who it is that we are. So we're talking still about love. Our natural nature is Ma'at. Not Ma'at as a deity, but Ma'at as attributes, as truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, balance, reciprocity. And they're not limited to just that. There's also power, there's also love, there's also resilience. So we have a plethora of attributes that's truly us. So what I see today, even in a lot of ATRs, we have a lot of ritual busyness where it looks almost performative, like we're doing things to affirm our truth, our justice, our righteousness, our harmony, our order, our balance, our power, our love, instead of just being it. It's almost like people are operating as though they feel like they're at a deficit of having these attributes, and we got to do all of these things to earn power or ask for power from the universe, when you are power, you are influence, you are charisma. And it's only several things that could stop you from being power, being influence, being resilient. And those things come from outside. There's certain things that can happen to you that knocks you off your center and knocks you off your reality of being powerful and being influential and being resilient. And one of those things is physical trauma. Physical and psychological trauma causes the body to release a hormone cocktail that's contrary to God's or the divine's hormonal cocktail that's within your body. So it becomes this cascade of hormones clashes with your natural organic cascade of hormones, and this is how it is that it becomes that you begin to disconnect with the reality of who it is that you are and your powers. The second is your food. Not so much what you eat, but what's being done to your food. So there's chemicals in the food, a man-made chemical cocktail that once again works contrary to the divine's chemical cocktail, which then throws you off center to what it is that your divine attributes are. Third is society miseducating you about who you are and what it is that your true capabilities are. For instance, peace. We talk about peace, we talk about power. Remember, you are peace. You don't have to seek peace. Peace is your natural nature. It's your organic nature. But nowadays, if you really listen to people, they see peace as being boring. So if there's nothing going on in your life, they be like, it's boring, it's too quiet. They start throwing music on. They start talking about going on vacations, because peace, after a while, because God forbid that you have to sit by yourself or sit with yourself for a day or sit with yourself for a week, and that you just start trying to fill it up with stuff because you think somehow things are not moving or you're not growing, when that's actually the definition of peace. Just you got space and time not to do nothing or have to think about anything. Have we seen in TV shows or whatever when you have incarcerated individuals, and it's like their worst nightmare is to go to solitary confinement, which is pretty much to be by yourself and not having to be bothered. So they're actually fighting to stay amongst hardened criminals, rapists, and sodomizers because they don't want to just be by themselves. That needs to be looked at. I heard a saying, I don't know who said it. It says, most of the problems of a man come from his inability to sit in a room by himself. These are just indicators that peace are your natural nature. And a lot of people don't think that peace is their natural nature. And they're trying to fill the peace in with all these external things. Distractions, even pleasurable distractions, even positive distractions is still a distraction from stopping you from going within inside yourself. Righteousness is also seen as weak. Matter of fact, truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, balance, reciprocity, all those things are seen as weakness in the society. They try to get you to see your divine attributes as weaknesses and moral or immorality as a power, almost as a superpower. So they see righteousness as you being soft and letting people get over it. And you're like, no, I didn't let that person get over. That's my brother. That's my sister. I understand that they might have got physically or psychologically traumatized that knocked them off center with their inner divinity. And they're probably eating the wrong foods that knocks them off center with their divinity. And I'm just going to give them some space to hopefully figure some things out and to get possibly pop back online. So that's not weakness, that's strength. When you have the fortitude and the clarity of mind to exercise decisions and not just go with whatever's not making you feel good at the time. Another example is you can see somebody drop $100 bill and you'd be like, excuse me, sister, you dropped $100 bill. And some people are like, hey, you better than me. I would have kept that. How that could have been the universe saying that $100 was for you. And I say, no, that was for her. She dropped it. I saw her drop it. So that's her $100. So now if I randomly find $100 and it doesn't appear to be attached to nobody, then I can see that as a sign for the universe saying that it's talking to me. And that's my $100. But this is how, this is now we're talking about divine interpretation, how to see different things. But you see people rail against positive qualities that's just there. It's almost like you have to train to be negative. Everybody's already started off positive, but you're being seduced and reduced to do things that's going contrary to your nature. And then you hear people look at the way the world is and they be like, where's God at? And they start questioning your God or questioning all gods of all traditions. Be like, where's the gods at? Why is things the way they are? And I say, good question. Why are things the way they are? Where is God? Where's the goddesses? That's you. Like, where is your divinity? That's a question only each of us as individuals can ask. The government can't do it. No, nothing outside of yourself can't do it because we were all given those things inside of ourselves. And we keep playing this ritual with ourselves like we're not who we really say we are. Which brings us now to self-mastery. What is self-mastery? I was reading in the Hosea, one of my favorite quotes, the book of Kemmunion, page 49, paragraph 2. It said, those who are blameless in matters of conduct, no words can prevail against them. And those who are self-mastered, the harsh are kinder to them than their own mothers. And all people become their servants. Now, like, that's deep. I always love that. It said, all people become their servants. The harsh are kinder to you than their own mothers. I always thought that type of person looks almost like some Buddhist monk or some type of priest. And you're like, okay, you got to be zoned out in order for people to submit or whatever. Just acknowledge your internal power. Now I look at it different. And it is that. But I look at it different. I just look at other words. It said the harsh will treat you kinder than your own mother. So now there's an indication of love in there. Most people, when we think of mothers, we think of love and we think of nurturing. I know some people are like, oh, I hate my mother and my mother hates me. So what am I supposed to do that with that in the sit? And I was saying that's why we have mythologies from each culture. In each mythology, the mother is always symbolic of love and nurturing, just like the father is always a protector and provider. These are not things that cultures try to teach. This is biological, evolutionary biology. It is what it is. So you can have your opinion on it, but men are genetically programmed to be protectors and providers, and women are genetically programmed to be lovers and nurturers. It just is what it is. We're right now in a human culture, we're trying to reverse engineer the process, but that's just how it's been since time immemorial, since we've had physical bodies. So it goes back to like, okay, let's change the wording of it a little with this new understanding. What does it say? Those who are self-mastered, the harsh are kinder to them than their own mothers. and all people become their slaves. So let us change the self-master to the one who loves himself. So the ones who love themselves, the harsh are kinder to them than their own mother. So now we're about to blend philosophy, metaphysics, and science. So now in science, the study of neurology, which is the study of the brain and the nervous system, they teach us that we have something called mirror neurons in our body. Everybody has mirror neurons, meaning if I get myself into a state of love or state of rage or state of happiness, you see entertainers do this before they get on stage. They go through their own little ceremony. They push up, sit ups. Some of them even be doing cocaine, whatever. I guess that's European plant medicine or whatever. Some of them do some things to get them in a state. So when they go out there on stage, it activates the mirror neurons of the crowd, and the crowd is responding to the state of the person on stage. That's what an MC is. MC stands for mic control. Even that's actually what Kerheb means. Kerheb is the master of ceremony. So it's the leader of ritual, the one who has control of his mind, his body, and his state to actually influence and magnetize a room. There's also something called heart coherence. There's a institute called Heart Math Institute, and they discovered that the electromagnetic pulse coming from the heart is 500 times stronger than from the brain. The heart is said to have its own nervous system, so the impulses, the messages from the heart are strong. The heart to the brain are stronger than the brain to the heart. Now, with heart coherence, same as with the state of as far as the neurology that I just said about the mirror neurons. So you could get a person in front of a group of people, and within a matter of minutes, everyone's heart starts beginning to synchronize, almost like the mirror neurons. So we got some things happening. So we got mirror neurons and we have heart coherency going on, just with us all being in the same place and space together. And they also done experiments with a metronome tick, 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 tick. So you can get a metronome and get a group of metronomes together in a room, and within 2 minutes, all the metronomes gonna start syncing in together. You could take a wild horse and put a wild horse, and the only way to calm that wild horse is to put them in a stable with calm horses. So even the animals, some animals have the mirror neurons also. That's why I said, so all people become their servants. So that made me think about what's going on in our conscious community with teachers and leaders and all these people on TikTok. Everybody's code breakers. They're trying to wake you up or whatever. So if I say the person that loves themselves, the harsher, kinder to them than their own mothers, and all people become their servants, that's some serious metaphysics right there. So if I love myself, what does that look like? It doesn't mean me hugging and kissing on people. It just means me being at one and at peace with myself, to the point where I show up and I'm present in conversations. I'm empathetic as well as sympathetic. And you can have a person that might not even like you or care for you, but after a conversation with you, they be like, oh, they was cool. And we was laughing and stuff, and like we was best friends by the end of. That's how it works when you love yourself. You're like, I'm not threatened by that person. They don't validate me. They can't make me feel less about myself than myself. I know who I am. I've identified with the divinity that I am. My attributes are truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, balance, reciprocity, power, resilience, influence. So there's nothing this person could do or say to make me feel less than myself. So when I'm totally convinced of that in my brain, my body, and my nervous system, and I teach my people this, the superior person on the scene influences or dominates the energy. Most people don't have control of their nervous system. So most people are just waiting to be influenced by whoever feels the strongest about themselves. Even us as righteous or positive people, we even have to watch where we go, because sometimes the negativity could be so thick with the drinking and smoking, and sometimes that can impact you. So you be like, I'm gonna stay away from that. I'm gonna stay away from there. And the same, some people that's indulging in some of that stuff, they be trying to stay away from people like us, because they be like, oh, they're going to have me drinking green drinks and meditating and wearing white, as though something was wrong with that. So subconsciously, they know they could be influenced, and their engineering could be reversed also. So once again, when we look around our community, we talk about knowledge of self, but with knowledge of self, suppose that became self-love. Knowledge of self it's not necessarily synonymous with self-love. Self-love needs to be worked on. What about yourself that you love outside of your black skin, outside of your features? What is it that you love about yourself? So the point I'm saying is, with all this knowledge proliferating in the community, with all these teachers and leaders in their own right, if love is not tangible in the air, then there's a problem. Could it be that many of all the people with the knowledge don't really love themselves, and they haven't had the heart coherence to influence the community? They haven't charged their nervous system with it. Do they really believe in what it is that they're teaching? That's what I'm getting. I think everybody's getting so much into information that they're forgetting that they're supposed to embody this stuff. You're supposed to be the example. What they said, that's saying you are the one we've been waiting for. All these things are saying this whole thing with the harsher conduct to them than their own mothers. All people become their servants. You are the one that we've been waiting for. So what if we as a community embody that we are the ones that the world has been waiting for? What would that look like? What would that influence on the world look like? You even see these things happen in relationships. A lot of relationships fail because people are looking for other people outside of themselves to validate who they are. So you want somebody to love you, be loyal to you, but you don't love yourself, and you're not loyal to who it is that you are and your divine attributes. How does that work? And with that being said, I would say most people lean towards neuroticism. I'll say it again. Most people lean towards neuroticism. What does that even mean? So neuroticism is those that are likely more than average to experience, check it out, anxiety, worry, fear, guilt, frustration, pessimism, depressed mood, loneliness. I'll go through it again. Anxiety, worry. This is neuroticism, neurosis, anxiety, worry, fear, guilt, frustration, pessimism, depressed mood, loneliness. Isn't this the definition how sometimes the conscious community makes us feel when we listen to people go through their spill? It be filled with those attributes right there. It's always anxious about something in the future. The conscious community been saying stuff about the future for 20 something years. They keep us scared 2 years at a time. Oh, I told you this was going to happen. Now you're worried. There's all this fear about who you are, your identity and things like that, your future. You're feeling guilty if you're not scared like how they want you to be scared. There's frustration, there's pessimism, and then there's loneliness. So here we are on these apps and all these devices. So we're connecting internationally, yet people are still walking around feeling lonely. So that's why I said most people are inclined towards neurosis. So here we have all this knowledge, which was supposed to be liberating, but it winds up being almost like the worst thing that could happen to people. Now you're burdened by your knowledge. So the knowledge is burdening you, and it's knocking you off center from loving yourself. And this is where I say, this is where ritual comes in. This so-called ritual busyness that I told you about before at the beginning. Ritual was to counteract the neuroticism. Remember, anxiety, worry, fear, guilt, all of that stuff. Ritual counteracts the neuroticism. Ritual opens the way for balance and context in a society that demands so much of our time, our money, and our energy. I was watching a documentary on the Jewish tradition, the Hasidic Jewish tradition. You know, they have a lot of ritualisms in that community. You know, to wear the black and the tassel, and a lot of that stuff is not even in the Torah or the Pentateuch. You'd be like, yo, where did they get that stuff from? The Israelites get on them about that. They making that stuff up. So what they said in that documentary was, it says we have all these rituals to stop them from being distracted from the world. And I know a lot of people always take cheap shots at the so-called Jews and stuff like that, but they're a tight society, so their ritualisms actually keep them focused on their collective identity as well as their personal identity. They have a power base that they could pull from when the world is not acting right. So we, on the side, we kind of envy them, but we don't want to do what's necessary to do to get to that same place, and we still undermine ourselves with the individualism. And this is why we're trying to prime you all for meeting in person and engaging in person, because when we engage in person, that is our restoration. That's how we keep our sanity in this world that keeps demanding our time, our money, and our attention. So we have to have some say so about where our time, money, and attention goes to in a way that benefits us. So we can no longer have the philosophy of gods, but the lifestyle of weaklings. I repeat that. We can't have the philosophy and talk the talk of gods or divine beings, but have the philosophy of weaklings. And I'm going to tell you this, the deities, the Netzeru, the Orishas, all the divine beings, they don't respect weakness. Only if you were born with a congenital, what do they call it, congenital weakness, or an invalid, for some reason beyond your circumstances that you don't have all your faculties. Those are the ones that the Netzeru and the ancestors have mercy on. But all the other ones, the ones of us that know, the initiates know you're supposed to create worlds and move mountains. That's what's expected for us. They want you to walk in power. So let's be better than just giving tribute or doing tributary gestures to our ancestors. Most people are 2 steps removed from the power that's actually supposed to be in the rituals that they're doing. I repeat, most people are 2 steps removed from the power that they're supposed to be accessing in these so-called rituals. What is that talking about? Most people, I'm talking about FBA or people just that's been born over here in this experience over here that have melanated skin. When we claim our culture back, a lot of times when we claim our culture back is to revolt. It's a revolutionary act against the dominant society. You'd be like, well, the Europeans do such and such, so I'm African, so and indigenous, so I do this. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's value in that. Remember, there's a starting point for everything. But a lot of people, that's all they stop at that. They don't dig in deeper to the way of life that they're doing. They're just satisfied that is other than what the Europeans say we're supposed to be doing. The second is a gesture of pride to the children in the community. You're like, I'm going to wear these African garments and I'm going to go out into the community so the kids can see that it's okay to be something other than a Christian, Muslim, or a Jew. Once again, those things are good also. No condemnation in that. We need starting points. We all were there at one point. Those are all reasons why we do what we do or why we did it a certain way back then. But let's understand these traditions that we're claiming and these ancestors that we're lining ourselves up with. They did things for a total different reason. They didn't do anything that had nothing. They knew who they were, and they didn't do things as a reaction to Europeans for nothing. If you look at the indigenous societies and the African societies, if you start studying their theology and stuff, they all pretty much believe that they're direct offsprings of the divinities. So when they're doing their offerings, when they're doing their prayer, as far as they're concerned, it has to be answered. It has to work because I'm a direct offspring of the divinity. There's no believing, there's no hoping. They like it has to. So that's a whole different way that you show up for ritual. While a lot of us over here, you're hoping, you're wondering, or whatever, so you're not showing up with the same statement. So you're not charging your neurology. So one, as you see, one is performatory and the other is a personification. You see, one is performatory and one is a personification. I'm inviting you into being transparent on how you approach ritual, how you approach culture, how you even look at our culture. Are you doing it just as a sign or symbol of defiance against dominant society, or are you really ready to walk into some serious power? So with that being said, going forward, each communion, each week or bi-weekly communion is supposed to be improvement in our lives from one point to the next. This is what I'm talking about, a new approach. So remember, we got to celebrate every small thing to prepare and trigger something or activate something in our conscious to prepare for a bigger celebration. So now in the chat, when you show up at communion, you should say, I overcame blank, blank, blank. I shifted blank, blank, blank to blank, blank, blank. I manifested blank, blank, blank. That is supposed to be progression. It's supposed to be keper. So in the spirit of the 9, which is supposed to be death, which is supposed to be completion, radical transformation, don't let that be the nail in the coffin for us in the Kemetic legacy. Let it be the nail in the coffin for us in our proclivities to lean towards weakness, and let us start leaning into our power. So who's down for that, or who's up for that? That's called a double bind or catch-22. Who's down for that and who's up for that? Put a 1 in the chat. No ones, like, I don't know, I'm asleep. But that concludes my message for today. So once again, if there's any discrepancy in the transmission of the message, I take full responsibility for that. And once again, I hope, I know, and I trust that you all know that I don't ever try to offend anyone. I'm just teaching the truth the best way I know it, with the language, trying to be provocative and evocative. Got a whole lot of ones, so can we all say Shemi and Matep, we go in peace and satisfaction? And I charge you to come with some transformation, some bragging rights next time when we do the opening, when I say who are you and whatever, when we do that, we're going to open it away to let people share some things briefly in the chat. Just share what it is that you overcome, what it is that you shifted, what it is that you manifested, what improved. That's how we're going to go from each communion this year. You got to make your checklist, because we have a lot of small victories. Everybody's waiting for the big victories, but even in a piece of art, it is the small details that help you appreciate the bigger picture. So sometimes, what we say, macro and micro, sometimes macro is too big and you got to go to the micro. So we're just taking it from the start and starting with micro movements, micro successes, and we're going to be all right. So with that being said, the Soot Biddy is out. Shemi and Matep, you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful rainy day. It's all beautiful. So until next time, Shemi and Matep.